SwimSwam podcast coming to you today with the head coach of George Washington, fresh off their Atlantic-10 championship. That's their second championship in the last 3 years. And the A10 Coach of the Year here for 2021, Brian Thomas, joins us from Washington, D.C., I'm assuming, Coach?
Yes, sir. In my office.
What went so well? You guys set 4 conference records, I think, and 7 program records in a year that nobody was supposed to go fast because there was this pandemic thing going on. I mean, what went so well for you guys?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, all the credit kind of goes to our guys. They had essentially made a decision early on in August that they wanted to do this thing the right way and just kind of went with everything as it came at them this year, and were able to put together probably a really solid, no, it doesn't sound like much, but a solid 6 weeks of training right before we got to the A10 meet, which kind of saved our season to a certain degree. We had a lot of ups and downs and starts and stops up to that point, but they were very committed to what we were doing and making it work with all those challenges. So that was really probably the biggest difference maker. I will say it should have been 5 conference records. We had a relay DQ'd early in the meet on a call I'd really never seen before, but maybe a little freshman mistake there cost us. However, it was a ton of fun being able to wrap things up that way after a pretty challenging year.
Well, let's start there because that's my favorite learning opportunity is the hardships. How did you turn around that? It was the medley relay the very first night, right? How do you turn that around and still rally for such an amazing weekend? That's an easy out if anybody was looking for doubts in their meet after this crazy year. How do you turn that around?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, one benefit we have in swimming is when we get a call like that, we have kind of like a couple minutes to think about our response to it. Whereas basketball, football, whatever, it's kind of like an immediate thing. We didn't realize it had happened right away. And then slowly the official walks over and you kind of have a moment to collect your thoughts. So that probably helps us. I grabbed the athlete and basically said, hey, it happened. Our response will say a lot to our team. So let's do it the right way starting right now and move past it. I think the positive was that we had won that relay by 2 seconds. So we knew we were swimming well. And then we went on and won the 800 freestyle relay by 7 seconds. And, even though we were in last place after Wednesday night, we felt pretty good about what we were doing, just individually and then collectively as a team. So it was easy for them to move on from that.
What do you do in 6 weeks that can lead to such great results? What did you learn? What did you do?
I don't think it was just those 6 weeks. Like I said, we were back in August and we had just an interesting fall in terms of, being able to get going. We had a great first 2 months or so. And then we had a couple positive tests and we had a lot of contact tracing and we had a lot of interruptions. We had a 5-day shutdown for the inauguration. So that was unique. But then it just seemed like we kind of got into a little bit of a groove and finally had a good window of time between our last dual meet and the A10 meet. And we kind of did that intentionally. We knew it was longer than normal that we would have between competition, but we just wanted to lock it down and eliminate any possibility of getting a positive or whatever it might be. And it allowed us to have a ton of consistency through those 6 weeks. And it was just our best shot at training. And I think, any coach will tell you if you can be doing your best training at that point in time, right before you rest, you're going to feel pretty good about yourself. So I think we had a little bit of that going.
Yeah. You talked about a freshman and you had a freshman. I want to make sure I say it's Carl, right?
Yeah, Carol. Yep.
Carol Menarzik. Is that
Mlinarczyk?
Mlinarczyk. Thanks. Sorry, I want to make sure I get that right. Carol Mlinarczyk, and I will get it right. But what a debut conference meet for him and somebody who's coming to the program for the first time. Obviously, some things are clicking, so I'm going to keep digging. I want to know about those 6 weeks. What is it about the work? It might be typical work that you guys normally do, but what is clicking so well to have somebody adapt? Because sometimes coming their freshman year, yards is very intimidating, and those walls come quick. And they're not used to it. And it takes a year or so to get used to the weights and the intensity or whatever it is. Something's clicking for Carol. What went so well for him then? And if you could get more specific in training, I know that's what the listeners and I would love to hear.
Sure. Yeah. I think first and foremost, we knew coming in that he was sort of geared towards short course swimming. His results, short course meters are really good and probably like a step ahead of where he is long course. So we figured he'd be pretty good. He probably made some of the typical freshman mistakes that you see. Like, it was an adjustment for him coming here, but his work ethic is really, really good. He already had a pretty good background in strength and conditioning, so he knew what he was doing in the weight room, and we supplemented well there. I think, again, from a training standpoint, we tend to be fairly individualized with our approach and trying to set things up so that instead of sticking to rigid groups where some of the work is specific to them and some of it isn't, there tends to be a little bit of a shift. So someone like Carol would go, a main workout of backstroke on Monday afternoons, which was focused mostly on the 200. He'd come back and focus on the 50 freestyle with Logan, our sprint coach, on Tuesday afternoons. Wednesdays, we typically tried to split the men and women, keep them together, and do some element of race endurance work. Thursday was a little bit of I hate to call it recovery, but an aerobic recovery, a little bit of power work in the morning, that sort of thing. And then, so he'd do that workout with Logan. Friday, he'd come back with me and would work 100 backstroke. And we tend to try to make sure that every session is like pretty specific to what he's trying to accomplish. And I think that's where it starts. But he's a really good trainer. There are plenty of days where we kind of look at ourselves as a staff on the pool deck and say, okay, we really haven't seen that before in a workout. So this is probably going to end up being pretty good. But he had to make some adjustments. When he first started feeling out the 100 backstroke short course, it was almost like he was trying to swim at like a 100 long course backstroke in terms of underwater tempo, in terms of his tempo on the surface. And then it finally clicked for him at the 8:10 meet. I mean, we had a lot of back and forth about it. He's a great kid in that he wants to know everything and the why behind it, so he's great at communicating, and just his personality in general has probably pulled a lot out of our team. He loves the team aspect of things here. But anyway, I mean, I think he was finally able to make some of those improvements. We saw him go out in 22.5 when he went 46.0, and it was like, finally, we can see something there, and, kicking out to 15 and all that sort of stuff. So kind of put it together.
Awesome stuff. Cool. When you talk about the team atmosphere, you gave us a great layout. That was I appreciate how the weekly kind of cycle works and how you mix in with the women's program as well. What's going on with the women's program? And I know that there were good results, and there's been a lot of, steps up in the 8:10 in the last few years with the women's program. Checking in on that side of things. I know you had a great distance swim to end the meet, and there's a lot of other good positive things. Tell us some things that are going on with the women's program and how you kind of fit in a combined program balancing men and women. And when one team is the 3 out of 4 year, conference champion and the other isn't, how does that kind of weigh on the team culture?
Yeah, I think that was something when I started here, and I was fortunate to take over a program that was already being elevated. And James Winchester was my predecessor here, and he put a lot of things in place that helped with that. We were able to kind of continue that. We won a conference championship with the women last year. What we found is, we had a number of opt-outs this year that probably hurt us from a point scoring standpoint. And we kind of knew, I think, going into the meet that was going to be the case. So we just tried to make the best of it, and even started talking a lot about 21-22 and how we can use some positive momentum through this year and everything we've been through to bring in, 11 new athletes and really kind of, I guess, turn the corner a little bit and do some of the things the guys have been doing in terms of consistency. One thing in swimming that we don't probably recognize enough is that they're completely different conferences on the men's side and the women's side, so it's a little bit different in every realm, trying to accomplish what the other team might be accomplishing. We really do basically everything together. We are a true combined program, and even swimming and diving, our diving coach runs our dryland program, and we do everything absolutely together. So I don't think there's any kind of schism or any sort of issue within our culture that the guys were able to have the success, because I think the women believe they're right there, and we do have a very talented class coming in. All 11 score at the 8:10 meet as juniors in high school, and we're looking forward to bringing them in. At the same time, as turning over that many athletes can do anything to your culture, so we're pretty protective of that.
How do you protect the culture with your recruiting? What kind of athletes are you looking to bring in to add to that team atmosphere that it sounds like is moving in the right direction and has been for a while now.
Yeah, one thing I was against when it started was, recruiting earlier and earlier. Maybe part of that was just the comfort zone, but I've really grown to love it. It's given us a ton of time to talk through those things. And by the time our athletes commit, they're like well aware that we place a huge priority on the environment and the culture within the team. It's like the first thing we mentioned on the first phone call. And really every step of the way, we talk through those things and making sure that it's a priority for them as well. I think any junior, sophomore in high school is looking for that. They want a team that they're really closely connected with, coaches who are easy to communicate with and like to have a lot of fun on the pool deck. So it's not like a tough sell necessarily, but I do think it gets the point across when we're able to repeat these things over and over again through the recruiting process. And again, with a little more time to do it, just getting to know them a little more as athletes, being able to talk to coaches a little more, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Are there any obstacles to recruiting? Obviously, Washington, D.C. is a very appealing area for a lot of reasons, and also, very crowded area and a lot of other things. Are there any obstacles that are, keeping you from getting some of the kids that you feel like, or maybe misconceptions out there about the program or the location that could be cleared up here?
Sure. Yeah. I think there might be a lot of unknowns. We think that our biggest selling point in the recruiting process is probably our location. There's a ton of positive that comes with that opportunity to start your career, beyond swimming and maybe have a leg up on others in doing so. The location within the city is really unique. We're about a 5-minute walk from Washington Harbor, which is like halfway between Georgetown and GW. So it feels like a college town. You almost forget you're, in the heart of DC. We also have a pretty traditional campus. It's not a typical city school. Everything is within 4 blocks. It's, a lot of open space, green grass, tall trees. So I think our students at least like that they have kind of the best of both worlds. They can get off campus and do some things, but they also get a little bit of the traditional experience too. So, some of the challenges I think are probably the academics. It's a very good school academically. We're ranked toward the top 50. So kind of working our way through that and making sure the focus stays, both on swimming and on academics and also making sure we don't have to sacrifice anywhere. When it comes to that, we run 4 workout blocks a day, to make sure that we can individualize things, but also to make sure it's working around academic programs and things like that. So, what I've learned at several universities, working at 4 universities, is that everywhere has its challenges and everywhere has its pros. And certainly we have a little bit of both, but it is really unique. That's one thing that I always think about in the recruiting process. We're basically trying to take them from knowing nothing about GW to a point where they can't see themselves anywhere else. So we have to really get it out there and let them know what they're getting into. But once we are able to open their eyes to everything that the school has to offer, it becomes a bit of an easy sell.
Yeah. It's great stuff, Brian. I really appreciate the chance to kind of get a peek into the coaching side. And I think students get a good feel for, what you bring to the table and what the program has to offer. I also want to make sure I'm asking some coaching questions. So I saw some fun side things that I kind of want to ask. I saw you have a son named Boomer.
I do. Yes. Yeah. We actually have 2 kids, Boomer, and then Chip is 2 months old.
How old's Boomer?
Just turned 3.
So
yeah.
Was he named after Michael Phelps's Boomer?
That's like the first question I always get in the swimming world. Most people have no clue, but no, he wasn't actually. His real name is Benjamin. We were actually watching the NFL today on CBS. My wife and I are sports nuts. So we're just sitting on the couch and I was like, what do you think about Boomer as a nickname? Boomer Esiason is on that show. He's a famous quarterback. Young people listening to this podcast probably have no idea who he is, but we just kind of like the name. We also like what Boomer's done for cystic fibrosis research and what he's done as a philanthropist beyond his athletics. So we kind of liked both of those things. My wife's extended family's from Kentucky, so they're big Bengals fans anyway. So it worked in a number of ways, but it was pretty cool. When I got to GW, we had an employee here actually buy a Boomer Esiason game jersey from the University of Maryland, signed, and gave it to us in a frame, which was really cool, kind of as a welcoming gift. So I get that question a lot.
I know. Sorry. It's just a very unique name. And I definitely remember Boomer Esiason. I actually went to broadcast school with future weatherman named Boomer, but it's a unique name. And so I had to, as the, the swimming connection. ask. So you got a 2-month-old at home now too?
Yeah. We had timed that one pretty well until everything shifted, pre and post COVID and all that sort of stuff. So that was a little wild. I actually have been telling a lot of people, I think the most relaxing day I had this season was the day that Chip was born, because I knew I couldn't do anything else. Like we had to meet the next day. Katie and Logan handled the lineup, the itineraries, all the travel, and I just focused on what I was doing there. So it made it kind of easy to a certain degree, as weird as that might sound, but life-changing having kids. When it comes to coaching and everything it means, it will absolutely make you a better coach, and has been absolutely the light of my life. And I don't know if you feel the same way, Garrett, but kind of changes perspective for sure.
I do. And I think even within it, like you just kind of gave an example of the fact that the second one, you can appreciate a lot more after having a little experience, knowing they're not as easy to break as you think. So the fact that you could relax on the birthday of the second one, something that wouldn't have happened with the first. And as you continue through what I like to call the zombie phase right now, my friend, just remember that you always want dibs on Chip. Whenever you're going man to man, you always claim Chip, because that one in the second phase, newborns are the best. You're like, man, this phase is so wasted on new parents with the first kid, right?
For sure. I mean, he's a piece of cake at the moment, but Boomer lives up to his name. He is a wild man, and there's no getting around that. But one thing Danielle and I have kind of as a vision for our own lives is to have a family that's really closely connected with our team. And we want our athletes kind of feeling that, coming down to our house, hanging out with our kids. Our kids are always on the pool deck, running around and all that sort of stuff. So it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, it makes for a good, comfortable family environment. And when there's kids on the deck, it's pretty tough to feel, unsafe and those type of things. That's pretty cool atmosphere. How do you have a little downtime now? How do you balance? Because I'll be honest, it sounds like you got 3 babies, maybe 4, with 2 different men's and women's programs and 2 kids at home. When you're talking about how you guys grind and want to make sure that you got 4 blocks a day, plus you're talking about the recruiting cell, plus all that stuff. I know balance isn't possible, and so I'm not asking if you're balancing, but how do you make sure you're being the most for both?
Yeah, it's funny. Again, I think about how being a parent maybe makes you better. I'm just far more organized with my time now. Like every day is written out to the half hour, to where it's like, I got this call, we got this workout, I need this block to plan, I need this block for Boomer, for Bath, and you make sure you're available that way. Of course, as you probably know, you put these plans together and then they get blown up every day, but at least it gives you some sort of organization. Right now, we do have a couple athletes that'll be out at Indy for the Pro Series. One of which is trying to make his Olympic team for Latvia. So he's resting up now a second time, basically, to try to do that. Carol actually just finished up his Polish national championship last week. So we have some of this and that going on over the summertime. We'll have a group of about 20 to 25 that'll be here throughout the summer, which is obviously something we've emphasized is trying to kind of build upon that. And again, one great thing about being in DC is they, oftentimes get into internships or, shadowing at the hospital if they're in the medical field, things like that are all within, 5 minutes of campus. So they can kind of do both and maximize their 4 years here. Good
stuff, Brian. Hey, I really appreciate it. I feel like I got a lot of information, got to know you, got to know the program. And I really appreciate your time today. Best of luck here this summer and going into that 2021-2022 season.
Likewise, Garrett. It's a pleasure, man.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.